First slide. Well, I'd like to start by thanking you, Alan, wherever you went, and the World Customs Organization for chairing the seventh gathering of the Congress. Fantastic job. And clearly, I think it's good to start the day by expressing our appreciation of the other partners that we've worked with this year and the past years, the World Intellectual Property Organization, Interpol, International Trademark Association. Without the constructive input of this group, we wouldn't be able to have this kind of a conference. And clearly, our national hosts here in Turkey have been fantastic, Turkish Customs and TOB. So, I was thinking about this conference and what I wanted to say to get things started, and I thought I'd just share how I actually feel, which is very excited to be here. This is quite possibly my favorite time of the year, when the Global Congress gets together. In looking back a little bit over the years since we held this first Congress, I'd like to think that we're making progress. But since we last got together in Paris, I've been observing what I think are two troubling trends that continue to persist. And the first is that we continue to observe an increase in intellectual property theft through copyright piracy and trademark counterfeiting. I mean, we're seeing more seizures at the borders. We're seeing abuses in free trade zones. We're seeing infiltration of counterfeiting and piracy into our supply chains. As several speakers have pointed out this week, we're seeing an increased presence of organized crime. A troubling trend. The other trend that we're observing really since the beginning, I think of around 2012, is what I perceive as a major negative shift in public opinion on intellectual property rights and the protection of those rights. There seems to be an increasing chorus of voices that are undermining the IP system that we've sought to put in place over all these years, a system that has worked to deliver a steady stream of products for consumers. What we've seen were acts against the Stop Online Piracy Act in the U.S. We saw anti-ACTA protests all throughout Europe, which derailed what I think is a very valuable tool that governments could have used to upgrade their IPR enforcement systems. We've seen the promotion of plain packaging legislation in Australia, which basically expropriates IP rights and effectively makes it easier for counterfeiters to supply fakes. We've seen a movement against government and industry efforts to promote IP and protect it against theft in Africa, which has sidelined a series of conferences that we've tried to hold in that region. Now, what we've heard, especially in the opening session of the Congress from the Prime Minister, the Minister, and the head of TOB, is that governments are looking for ways to stimulate their economy, to grow jobs, to grow trade, and they're looking to solutions like IP as non-debt ways to stimulate the economy. So I think what the governments need are ways to address this problem. So since the last Congress, BASCAP has focused on working with national governments. Our message has been simple: to communicate the value of IP, to communicate what's at risk, and to share recommendations on how to move forward. Actually, our new initiative started here in Turkey a little over a year ago, where we held an event and communicated just those messages to the Turkish government. As a result, we were able to form an on-the-ground working group between business and all of the key ministries here in Turkey. We were able to do the same thing recently in Russia and more recently in Kenya. So what I've done with this panel is I've invited some speakers from some key countries to share exactly what this IP situation is in their country, to share with us what those weaknesses might be, and to help us understand what needs to be done better. And it's our hope that we can work collectively with these governments over the next year until the next Congress so that they can come back and report the progress that they've made. So with that, I'd like to introduce the panelists, and then I'll invite each of them to come up and make a presentation. So we have Sertak Kulksadi, Chairman of the IPR Division in Turkey, Kunyung Lee, Director of the IPR Division in China, Brenka Tocic, Director of the IPO Office in Serbia, Jose Werner, who is a reputed IP lawyer in Brazil, Ms. Jodi Vinch, who is the Deputy Director General of FICCI in India. And one of our panelists wasn't able to make it, Andrei from Russia, so I've asked Antonina Perenko from Ukraine to sit in. So without further ado, I'd like to start with Sertak, if you could come and introduce yourself and share with us your views from Turkey.
Dear distinguished guests, I want to thank the organizing committee for this excellent event and giving this opportunity to me. Turkey is on the verge of a new era. Structural reforms have strengthened the macroeconomic fundamentals of the country. The economy grew with an average annual real GDP growth rate of 5.2% over the past 9 years between 2002 and 2011. The visible improvements in Turkish economy have also boosted foreign trade. While exports reached $135 billion by the end of 2011 from $36 billion in 2002. The recently published Global Competitiveness Report 2011-2012 by the World Economic Forum classifies Turkey as a transition economy passing from an efficiency-driven to innovation-driven stage. Completing this transition will necessitate a tough stance against counterfeiting. Counterfeiting is not only a law enforcement issue, but it is also a core problem that is relevant to economic policymakers. Tackling counterfeiting is a difficult challenge. It requires not only close enforcement, but the necessary incentives to create long-lasting transformations in the habits of entrepreneurs. To create a policy environment against counterfeiting requires a high level of policy coordination among different departments in the government, dialogue and coordination among all the stakeholders in this area. In terms of magnitude, a recent BASCAP report finds that the total economic value of counterfeiting and piracy in Turkey is as much as $10.6 billion every year, more than 1% of Turkish GDP. Every year, between $3.5 billion and $4.4 billion of counterfeit products are imported into Turkey and consumed by Turkish consumers. Domestic production and consumption accounts for between $2.6 billion and $5.2 billion, while digital piracy accounts for between $400 million and over $1 billion. One of the deficiencies in the battle against counterfeiting and piracy was the legal status of goods in transit in Turkey. Before 2009, this led the courts to render many inconsistent decisions. After the amendment of the Decree Law 556, the legal status of goods in transition seems much clearer in Turkey than in EU, considering the Court of Justice of the EU's decision in the Philips versus Nokia case. After the amendment, the text identifying import and export as infringement was changed to entrance of the infringing goods to the customs zone and being subject to use or process which is confined by the customs authority. Of course, this definition is very broad and it covers all the goods that enters the customs area in Turkish grounds. After the 2009 amendment, goods in transit through Turkish customs can be detained upon the right owner's request. It should be mentioned that in order to detain goods in transit, the goods in question must comply with the definition of trademark infringement under Turkish law. Even if it is obvious that the goods are counterfeit, the customs authority will not ex officio detain the products. However, in practice, the customs authority tends to inform the trademark owners of suspect products to give them a chance to take the necessary measures. And this is one of the major improvements in counterfeit against counterfeit and pirate goods by the Turkish Customs Authority. When goods in transit are detained, the trademark owner has to file a civil or criminal action against the alleged infringer. A trademark owner may rely on its registered trademark and demand the cessation of its infringement. If the trademark is not registered, the owner may file an unfair competition action. According to a recent report by Thomson Reuters, Turkey is one of the top 10 countries with published trademarks for 2012. Turkey is following China, US, and Brazil, and followed by France, South Korea, Japan, Germany, Canada, and United Kingdom in number of trademark applications published. The findings indicate that low price, perceived prestige, brand popularity, and the degree of product availability are the major determinants of consumers' purchase decision of counterfeits. Despite the worldwide legal sanctions against the manufacturing and consumption of counterfeit products, the problem is expanding rapidly. To make consumers of counterfeits switch from counterfeits to genuine items, marketers should be available to convince consumers of counterfeits that the benefits of purchasing genuine items outweigh those of counterfeits. To remove the price advantage of these goods, which is a major driver of buying a counterfeit, authorities will take necessary measures to decrease profitability of such goods. The government and the public institutions that are related parties to fight counterfeit and piracy must adopt aggressive legal measures. Other efforts should be simultaneously added to discourage consumers from buying counterfeits. In order to be successful in our combat against counterfeiting and piracy, collaboration of all stakeholders is imperative. We are faced with a more organized crime, a network of suppliers and distributors, which necessitate a cohesive approach by government institutes, right holders, and law enforcement bodies. Thank you.
Well, good morning. It's a pleasure for me to be here speaking on the Global Congress. I would like to say special thanks for BASCAP, the person of my friend Jeff, I'll try to make a little overview of the problem that we are facing in Brazil. And for this, I will use case analysis for your case study for your better understanding. Actually, I was watching TV, BBC News 2 days ago, and I came across a survey they were organizing that was investigating the traffic jam and its relation to the economic growth of each country. The traffic jam is proportional, directly proportional to the economic health of a certain country. And this is very interesting because it was very in line with the countries that are showing problems with their economies. And the traffic jams are being reduced dramatically. And of course, the same intelligence, if you use other parameters, it can be applied to counterfeiting activities. At least in Brazil, the better the product is, the better acceptance it has from the consumers. And the most common launching of new brands, new products, this will impact immediately on the number of counterfeit products seen at the marketplace. Well, and this also happened with New Era. New Era is a client of the firm. Of course, they authorized me to talk about this case. It's a very sensitive case, very important case in Brazil. And of course, this is not the only case against counterfeits that we have in Brazil. Brazil has a very complex and very good system against counterfeiting. The laws are in line with the main of the international treaties. The federal constitution attests that counterfeiting is a crime, as well as trademark, copyright, patent, industrial design. So you have provisions for every type of intellectual property, and you have enforcement in the criminal, both criminal and civil enforcement for all of these institutions inside the intellectual property law. So 2 weeks ago, we ran a raid at this small factory in the state of Paraná. I won't tell you the city specifically because it's running under secrecy. But the fact is that this manufacturer has the capacity of production of 150,000 counterfeit caps and clothing articles per month. So it's huge. This is giving you the first impression. Not only China and Korea and other countries from Asia are responsible for manufacturing counterfeit products. Brazil is more and more getting involved with this activity. Although we receive millions and millions of products from abroad, Brazil has in the marketplace millions of products being traded that has been manufactured in China, Korea, coming from the US, Paraguay, Chile, Panama, etc. So we concentrate and we receive all these products to be sold in Brazil. Brazilian consumers, they love counterfeit products because they are cheap and they carry out the famous brand they want to wear and they want to use. These are the examples of the store. Actually, this raid was planned 6 months ago. We directly motions to the state police state police in Paraná, in the state of Paraná in Brazil. We addressed another motion to the court, and for some reason the raid has not taken place. We use every and all available remedy to obtain the seizure. Okay, So if we don't succeed with some specific way, we go to another way to obtain the seizure. So this is why we went to cooperation with GAECO, the local state public prosecutor unit dedicated to organized crime, and they helped us with an investigation. Actually, we gave to them all the information about the factory. We made the investigation before, but we asked their help to seize the products since we are not succeeding approaching with the police. The result is that all these products were seized. These are pictures taken inside the factory after and during the seizure. And the seizure resulted in the imprisonment of 26 people, including, among others, 3 former mayors of the city, a wife of the current congressman, the local head of the congressman in the city, and 6 police officers from the state. And this, of course, is a huge impact in the city. I don't know if you know, but Brazil has, like in China, some cities, some regions dedicated to manufacture some categories of products, and this, of course, is a category of product of city that is dedicated to manufacture of caps, clothing articles, and apparel. So I'm showing you, while I'm talking, some pictures. Actually, we seized in one raid, actually 10 to 15 tons of counterfeit products inside this factory. Well, what Paraná case confirms to us, and that, of course, we already know, the current reality of Brazil. This is the reality of Brazil if you run from São Paulo and from Rio. If you start a raid in other cities, you really have to have experience to deal with some problems like this. We are noticing an increasing of local factories. More and more, Brazil is establishing factories of luxury products, auto parts, CDs, DVDs, clothing articles, everything that we can have technology to produce. We have information about exports coming from Brazil to South America, and Brazil is not only manufacturing, producing these products, but it is exporting these products to South America. It's an organized crime. When you see police officers, when you see politic persons involved with these crimes, then you see that is an organized crime going on. They have interstate activity. They finance other criminal activity with the profit of this. And the logistics are much better than sometimes than the legitimate company. Counterfeiters are getting stronger. They have more money. They have more protection. With they can hire more lawyers, better lawyers. They can buy the police, local police. So, and this sometimes is common in specific regions like this that are dedicated to manufacture and produce certain products. Police situation in Brazil is the following. They don't investigate at all. It's rare. Federal police is very good. State police, they do something, but in rare situations. And the fact is that the brand owners need to investigate and to give the package to the police so that they can work on that. Priority. IP is not a priority for them. And this is why we need to put this in their mind to conclude and to get good results in terms of raids. There is something called PEC 37 is a proposal of amendment of the federal constitution, number 37, that is trying to remove the powers of the public prosecutor to investigate. You can imagine this case I showed to you here without the public prosecutor. The situation will stay the same. So this is something that local people should put pressure, and the international community should put pressure to not allow the Pact 37 to be approved. This is an absurd. There is a real need of specialized police, public prosecutor, and courts. This is the innovative key for Brazil. Brazil has 3 specialized police departments in 3 states, and this works very well sometimes. But the problem is that because of the police, the plan is to put the public prosecutor taking care of this as well, and to check and to fiscalize the police activity, not to allow any corruption, anything bad to go on. Actually, this proposal was already made by Angardi and by Daneman to the CNCP, is the National Council to Fight Piracy, is a multi-government council to fight piracy, and it's there. And now it has been included 2 weeks ago in a national plan to fight piracy. But of course, to get this really an effective, approved and in course, I believe that we need some pressure also from the international government, from ICC, from IACC, from USTR, any other governmental agencies, so that we can have this approved. Other problems, and I think my time is over. Other problems I can tell you, there is a bill running in the National Congress, PLC 11 of 2001. It is proposing the increasing of the penalties for trademark and copyright crimes. This would be very good to be approved. Customs, we don't have like a registration, recordation system for customs. They don't work under a standard procedure. Some courts, they authorize you to destroy and to have the definitive seizure of products under the administrative sphere, and some of them, no. They ask you, they require you to file court action. So this is another problem. And just to finish my presentation, I would like to conclude that even with these problems and these problems I showed here, it's very easy, and depends on how you conduct things in Brazil. Depending on the experience of the people involved, you can run very effective, very strong anti-piracy programs in Brazil. But in order to get these issues increased and solved, we need to have some pressure from associations, from government, and other partners that can and want to help. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm at your disposal to make clarifications later. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. I know Angardi is doing its best in Brazil. Clearly, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. We're certainly willing to help you. Our next speaker is Kwang-Young Lee, who's the director of the IPR Division, Department of Policy and Law, the General Administration of Customs of the People's Republic of China.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy, and good morning. I'm from China Customs. First of all, I'd like to express my thanks to the World Customs Organization and the Turkish Customs for inviting me and my colleagues to attend this Congress and to make a presentation on the China's practice on the counterfeiting, on the fighting against the counterfeiting and the piracy. In the past 2 days of the meetings, many speakers and the delegates mentioned that China, you see, and export many counterfeited goods, and they are flowing from China and to the market of the other countries. Some people even, you see, apologize for mentioning that. You see, we do not mind. We do not, you see, deny the fact that the manufacturing and the exporting of the counterfeit is still serious, you see. So we should try more effort. But what I want to say is that the efforts and the determination, as well as the achievement of the China government, can never be undermined, can either be, never be neglected. You see, as you have known that China is not the only supplier of the counterfeited commodities. Yeah, as many speakers mentioned that they have their own, you see, manufacturing of the counterfeits. But China is the only country which substantially cracked down the counterfeiting, cracked down the export. You see, I may not be knowledgeable, but as far as I know that no other country can, like China, you see, to have substantial control the export. Some important countries, they export counterfeits, but their laws, their enforcement practice do not, you see, involve export. It's the fact. The Chinese regulations of the custom protection of the IPRs specified that clearly customs should control both import and export in the matter of the IPR field. This is the figures of the custom seizures in the last year. You can see that over 95% of the detentions are made to the exported goods. And of course, we have the seizures of the import. In the February of last year, customs officers detected more than 20,000 counterfeited medicines, fake medicines, from the United States. It is different from the seizures of previous seizures of the import, in that you see the counterfeited goods often you see come back from other countries after they have been exported from China. They are re-importation. But this case is different. It is manufactured in the United States. So you can see we are the victim of the counterfeited too. And this is also, you see the figures of the seizures last year. And that illustrates that you see the increased detention on the postal and the courier consignment. And the customs seized 77% of the shipments you see are transported by the post and the courier consignment. That reflected the fact that the internet sale has been the main channel of the counterfeiting distribution. Of course, we have many seizures of the seaport, you see, because the seaport have the privilege of the, you see, transport ability. So the articles, the quantity of the articles, you see, 93% of the commodity are seized when they are transported by sea. And among the custom seizures, the trademark infringement is in majority. It has 94%, and most of them are counterfeiting. And the counterfeited goods covers from the tobacco, cosmetics, to medicines, memory cards, and electronic equipments, as well as cell phones, watches, and the luxury goods like Louis Vuitton's bags and all kinds of. So China customs is very successful in enforcing at the borders, IPR laws at the borders. But the central government are still not satisfied with the customs enforcement. We are urged to seize more because they often see that in the annual report of the foreign customs, you see, the percentage of the counterfeited from China is still high. So we are blamed, you see, not to have very strict, not to have, you see, satisfied control. So we are under the greater pressure from the central government. But you may raise the questions, why does China have to protect the IPRs? For the two purposes. One is to meet China's own need. Another is to safeguard the health of the global consumers. As to the China's own need of the protection of IPRs, we have a strategy of invitation-oriented country. And the central government have made a strategy to build China into a country of innovation-oriented state by the year of 2020, you see. So when we do that, a fair competition environment is very important. Since innovation needs a fair competition environment, and the tolerance of the IPR infringement will undermine the efforts when we do that, when we reach the goal. Just like you see in the pictures, you can see that the silkworm is the innovation. We have to give the silkworm very healthy leaves. That's the environment. Or not, it will die, it will shrink. And the second purpose of the protection of the IPR by China is to meet the need of the Chinese development. And the Chinese companies are still the victim of the counterfeiting, since we have many well-known brands in the foreign market, especially in the developing countries, like African and Southeast Asian and the Middle East countries. But most of them, you see, are suffering from the counterfeiting. Some are counterfeited by the Chinese own companies, you see. It's a tragedy. That is the seizures which infringing Chinese trademarks seized by the China customs in the last few years. And this is still the figures of the seizures last year. You can see in the red words, China has been one of the biggest countries, you see, which are suffered from the export counterfeiting, and following Switzerland. But Switzerland made commodities, not just Switzerland, you see, IPRs, you see, among the, you see, the first, because we seized many cigarettes, and most of them are counterfeiting Marlboro. Marlboro is the products of Philip Morris, which is stationed in Switzerland. And we count the cigarettes by sticks so that they have the large figures. It is, in fact, the China trademarks has been counterfeited more often. And that's the case why, you see, we protect the IPRs to safeguard the interest of Chinese companies. We have a well-known, you see, a trademark on batteries, tiger head, which is popular, used to be popular in African countries. But since the batteries are counterfeited by the Chinese own products, and because of the counterfeits often have the inferior quality, and it was banned by the local government, you see. Not only the counterfeited, but the legal products of the tiger head has been banned. So it's a tragedy. And we also discussed an imagined case, you see, to confirm that China's trademark cannot be developed, cannot be well known without cracking down the counterfeiting. Suppose, you see, we have the two shoes to be sold in the African countries. One is a genuine Nike, which is sold at the price of $200 US. Another is a Chinese brand, suppose Li Ning, you see, and the price is $100. But both of them are equal quality. And which one the African countries will buy them? Of course, the richer will buy the Nike. But for the ordinary consumers, they will choose the Chinese because they are both of good quality. But if there is an export of the counterfeited Nike from China, they are sold at the same price of the Chinese brand products. Which one they will choose? Of course, counterfeited Nike. They are both of famous and low price. So that will, you see, prohibit the Chinese brand to explore, to expanding its market in African countries. We often use such a case to educate the Chinese companies, you see, not to copy others. Please, you see, to make your own, you see, trademarks famous. That's the hope of the Chinese products. And of course, you see, we have the obligation, apart from the, you see, development of the economy of China's own economy, and we have the obligation to protect the safety of the global consumers. You see, China has been developing very quick. Many countries, you see, pay close attention to the China's rules played in international affairs. So the top leaders of China government realize clearly we must be a country of responsibility. We have to protect, you see, the safety of the global consumers. And the China customs, you see, we paid a close attention to the export of some dangerous products, dangerous counterfeitings, such as the car parts, food, and medicines, since they are harmful to the safety of the consumers. So we have the special campaigns last year and seized a lot of the counterfeited drugs and the car parts. And recently we have new regulations. Please allow me to introduce more in detail, you see. Since the May 1st of this year, we will have a new customs directives which permit the port customs to have more active actions against the counterfeits, actually the parcel and the courier transportation. The customs do not demand any application from the IPR holders. And we do not collect any, you see, bond security for the detention. We do not demand any cost of the storage and the destruction of the counterfeited. And we will very strict, you see, interpretation of the self-used or private used goods, personal used goods. In the past, you see, and the counterfeiters, they often make use of the, you see, the customs laws. So there is an article mentioned that any personal used articles can be free from the customs seizures. So they often, you see, have a shipment to be separated into small bags, small parcels. And they have, you see, the different names of consignees, consignors, you see. So the customs can do nothing to do that. So that costs the money, you see, and release of the counterfeited goods. Now, such a matter will never happen again. And we will demand the port customs to check every possible counterfeited goods. If you see any, you see, consignees, you see, consignors, you see, and claim that they are personal use, they must come to the customs to identify, to prove their identity, to prove their usage. Of course, many of them will not come, since they know clearly they are commercial. They are the international sold counterfeits. Of course, you see, we are suffering from the challenges. The first is that public awareness of the IPR protection needed to be improved. That's the topic we have discussed thoroughly in the past 2 days. And of course, we have several measures. You see, we use the internet, we use the training to some professionals like the postal staff and the carriers, FedEx and USP. And we have the exhibitions, we have TV programs and the lectures, even to the foreigners. You see, in China, there is a city called Yiwu. That's the, you see, the biggest distributed center or selling center, you see, of the world for the small, you see, commodities. You may have known that many businessmen from the Arab countries, from the African countries, they resident there. Yes, they organize, you see, even organize the productions and the transportation out of China of the counterfeited goods. So we have the special lectures to educate them not to buy them. If they want to, you see, buy, they want to sell, they want to transport them out of China, they will be seized. They will lose money. Of course, we invited some famous movie star, you see, Jackie Chan, you have known, and to dress in the customs uniform to educate the passengers. And that is very effective. It's the case of the effectiveness of the customs, measures. And several years ago, there's a Chinese factory came to the customs to require customs help. They got a contract from a Hong Kong company, and which demand a supply of a shipment of a bag of Disney. And the factory used to be punished by the customs for exporting the counterfeit. And they know the customs law, so they come to us to ask for help to identify if the contract is illegal or not. So we turn to the Disney company for help, and we know the process of such a licensing of this contract is very complicated. So finally, it is proved legal. So the factory began to produce them, And that, depends on the help of the industry people, And during the process of the identification, and the factory have to wait, for the result. And they may lose the business if, the Hong Kong company select another manufacturer. This factory may lose the business. There is a risk for him. But this factory, was willing to wait. It is very good for him. And of course, we have the pressures from the increased trade. And the increased trade require customs to have a quicker clearance of the shipment. We cannot have a more physical examination of the goods. But the physical examination is a customs' most important tool to detect the counterfeits. If we do not check the containers, how do we discover the counterfeits? It's impossible. But that's the fact. And the percentage of the customs checking of containers is only 1%, in average. In some basis, parts, even 0.1%. So we can do nothing about that. And it is the border between Hong Kong and China. The customs have to finish checking out each lorry within 10 seconds, or there will be a traffic jam. As the respected a speaker from Brazil said that, and the traffic jam may be the health of the economy, but it's not the case here. That's the pictures of the seaport, Customs have to work 24 hours a day and 7 days a week to clear the goods. And how to solve the problem? We have to apply the risk of the technology of the risk analysis. A risk analysis is a commonly used techniques among the customs of different countries, which enable the customs, to target the possible infringing shipment even before they are produced to the customs. This is the case of the success of the China's risk analysis. It's the story of the 2009, a company declared a shipment of the computer cabinet to Egypt, to the China customs. And we find the suspicious, for the time's reason, I will not introduce in detail. We find it is suspicious, and we check the containers, and we find more than 3 million fake medicines. But application of the risk analysis have the conditions. One, you have to get enough information. The second, you have to have enough time. As my friend, the Christopher Zimmerman of the Secretariat of WCO said in his previous speech that we can use the risk analysis since we have time. We control the import. We can get all the information even before the ship arrived. We have the 77 days when they are on the sea. It's not the case in China. We control export. The customs can only have it mostly 2 days, 24 hours to clear the goods. Before that, they are not produced to the customs. We cannot get any information. When they arrived, we have to quick, check the papers. We cannot, it's so rich, as he said, have the 77 days. That will be easy. And the customs seizures will improve greatly if we have such a, rich time. It's impossible. This is the case in Shanghai. We have to calculate it. Each officers have to clear 1,000 shipments a day. They have no time to see the document. Just turn it over, and seal them one by one. So we have another problem that the customs. Many people said that customs is very effective, thanks to you, but you give me the pressure. Customs is the agency at the borders, may not be the only or the most important agencies to fight against the counterfeit. We need other agencies, to control the source of the counterfeit. Just like the pictures I used, if the source, the counterfeit agent source is limited in quantity, the customs will have an easy job. But if they have too many, from the source, the customs will be, crazy. So when we say source, do not, take it as, the manufacturing chains. And the wholesale, the retailing, and even the consumer's demand can also constitute, the source of the counterfeiting. So that's the questions we have discussed in a few days. We have to control, every stop of the supply chain of the counterfeits. And of course, we need cooperation and home abroad. Internally, we have to cooperate with the policemen. And internationally, we have to cooperate with the foreign customs. I have the case, that's the seizure of the fake logos in Beijing airport. That's millions in quantity. But customs detected logos. And where's the cargoes? I'm sure they will be finally affixed to the cargo. There's two possibilities. One is they have the separate transportation. There will maybe the cargo-less, the logo-less products exported at the other times or in the other ports. There may be a possibility they are produced in the foreign countries, and China is only responsible to produce the fake logos. So we need international cooperation. If we can disclose the information to the destination countries, the agencies, their enforcement agencies, they can monitoring, the importers, or they can trace them to the manufacturer, possible manufacturers. There may be a great, achievement. But unfortunately, we just seize the logos. And of course, we are suffering from the tricks and the fraud played by the counterfeiters. The tricks includes, and they use the fake licensees. They pretend to be used, to be licensed by IP owners. And they may have a false description of the goods. Like the case, they describe the cigarettes as plastic bags. And they may, conceal their counterfeited goods into a legal, products. Or they even, covering, the counterfeited logos with the legal, trademarks. And they may, use the false name of the consignor in the parcel or courier transportation. And of course, finally, the last but not least, there are many industry people here. I will appeal that police support customs. According to China's practice, the support from the IPR owners is by no means satisfactory. First of all, they failed to provide enough information to the customs. Please see the figures below, And last year, the customs, we suspend release of the possible counterfeited goods. The number is 199 million, but only 93 million approved to be counterfeited. And what's the others? They are both either legal or, you see, abandoned by the IPR owners. They give up protection. And they have no response to the customs notification of the seizures. Or they have, you see, reached agreement with the infringers, and they give up their protection, withdraw their protection they have made to the customs. And of course, when disposing the counterfeits, some of them may be very dangerous, you see. Batteries, you see, the chemical products, and we need a special equipment to have them destructed. If the IPR owners refuse to provide help, we will have trouble. And the customs officers will be disappointed. I'm not sure they will seize them again in the future. Of course, many of the, you see, IPR owners failed to apply to the customs seizures. Even the customs notified that we have the seizure of the counterfeiting your trademark goods. And recently, we have a 1 month, you see, joint action with the CBP, the Customs and Border Protection of the USA. We seized, you see, many of the counterfeited goods, but we were disappointed to see that many of them are not recorded their trademarks with the customs. We cannot find their representative. We cannot get their help to identify, you see, the counterfeit. So, you see, success of the fighting against the counterfeiting really need the help and support from the industry people. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. It's certainly enlightening to learn about the challenges that the Chinese companies are facing, and I would say that's also encouraging to learn about the steps that you're taking in China. Our next speaker is Jyoti Vij, please. She's the Deputy Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce, otherwise known as FICCI.
So good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here at the Global Congress to present the India perspective. Of course, we have the custom officials also from, we have the member of the Central Board of Excise and Customs here with us, and that she has a better government perspective. But we, as an industry chamber, are trying to make some of the efforts, towards this direction, and happy to present some of those. FICCI, as some of you may know, is an old body set up in 1927 by none other than Mahatma Gandhi himself. He, at the 4th AGM of FICCI, made a statement that industry should regard themselves as trustees and servants of poor. And this work pretty much falls in line, creating responsible industry behavior and to fight against the menace of piracy and counterfeiting. These are the areas which come out of the ethos of the organization that we work with. To come on to what India is doing really in the field of innovation, some of you may be aware, 2010 and 20, the decade has been declared as the decade of innovation by the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Some of the efforts towards creating a stronger IP strategy is Ministry of Commerce, Government of India is initiating on working towards a national IP strategy plan. FICCI has been contributing, of course, to this as well. As we speak, ladies and gentlemen, we in India at FICCI itself are celebrating, along with the IP Office and the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, the World IP Day, essentially for nurturing and protecting innovation as the theme of that. At this conference itself, we are presenting the preliminary results of FICCI Business Confidence Index in the IPR space, which is being worked along with Deloitte. I thought I'll take this opportunity to present some of these preliminary results. This is a work in progress. We don't have the complete results, but you will see here some of the initial findings that have come out. Now, this is a survey which has been done with some of the multinational companies, predominantly from the space of pharma, gaming, manufacturing, IT communications, and publishing sector. So far, 6 business associations. So these are business associations who have members under them. and 31 companies. So taking all of that, about, I think, 80-odd companies have already responded, or maybe about 100. Just to reiterate, it is work in progress. So up till now, 84% of these companies, they agree that their IT portfolio has in fact expanded in the past decade in India due to the change in the IP scenario. Of course, this is not all, but there are concerns, of course, in the IPR protection framework, as has been pointed out by the respondents. 55% of them feel that both time and cost involved is an issue, while 25% feel time span involved at every stage is long. And 5% feel while the time span is improving, the cost involved is still a concern. 15% of them have also given other reasons like complexity of procedures and lack of general awareness. So these are the areas, which we shall be speaking to the government to bring about some improvements. In the Business Confidence Index itself, the key changes which have been highlighted that are required to improve the IPR ecosystem, 63% respondents saying increasing awareness amongst general public about infringements, its effects and consequences is critical. 25% feel need of specialized IP agencies is required, which includes state-wise IP codes, cells, and specialized judges skilled in IP. 15% have brought out, they've highlighted mechanisms of deterrence for penalizing the culprits should be made more stringent. And again, these will go into our submissions to the government. Now, these are some of the partnerships that we as FICCI have in the space of combating the counterfeiting and piracy area. We have a FICCI national initiative against piracy along with the Ministry of Human Resource Development. FICCI is also running an IP education center essentially to create awareness on this whole space. And Meenu did talk about, my colleague Meenu did talk about the consumer awareness work that we are doing under Cascade. We have an IP facilitation center along with Ministry of MSME, which actually handholds the micro and small medium enterprises in this space and promote the IPR and innovation with these companies. We are engaging with youth by organizing debate competitions, etc. This work we do along with IP office. So this is essentially various partnerships with the government. On one hand, to talk to the industry and the consumers to create that awareness side, and on the other side, involve government as well in our work so that the PPP framework can be well utilized in this area. Specifically to talk about the counterfeit and the piracy effort again, FICCI had started a FICCI Brand Protection Committee way back in 2000. We used to conduct, this was again a private sector initiative, so we used to conduct raids, etc., wherever we used to get the reports about the counterfeits, and that kind of stuff. We moved on to then promote an organization called Cascade, about which Meenu did talk about yesterday. This is again a private sector initiative, so from moving on to a more aggressive role of conducting raids, etc., we thought of dealing this issue from the consumer side and creating more awareness rather than doing that aggressive bit. Obviously, we work in close coordination with the government, so all the leads are still passed on to the government, to take action on their front. But then we are working towards creating a conducive environment for higher acceptability, on this front. If any government policy comes about, then there should be acceptability also with the industry and the consumer to accept the changes that are being introduced by the government. So in the awareness side, consumer awareness, along with the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, we're doing consumer awareness work, and I think we did talk in detail yesterday about it, so I'll leave that part. Along with Ministry of Finance, we've also started to work on training the custom officers, which is to essentially train the enforcement officials on the ground to understand how to really be able to deal with this very effectively. We're also starting to work with Ministry of Home Affairs to train the police officers in this area. This is all towards creating an environment which can help in enhancing the enforcement side in the country. This is, a study that FICCI has done essentially to find out what is the impact on the ground of counterfeiting, smuggling, and tax evasion. This was in 7 key industry sectors, which were basically chosen on the basis of the data which was available, which showed that these are the key sectors which are highly impacted by the counterfeits problem. The work was indeed a pioneering one, because there has been never a study before this to really find out, to quantify the impact of the grey market operations. So this was, yes, quantifying the grey market percentage across the industry sectors and its economic impact on industries and government. We used the data exclusively of the government published sources, and this was the most authentic database. Data points, as you can see here, were running into 256 lakhs. Annual survey, there is an annual sample survey of industries, a national sample survey, and import data, all government sources, as I mentioned earlier. And these are the data points, number of data points under each of the, these data sources. These data points are essentially published by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation and Directorate General of Commercial Intelligence. So all very authentic database. This was further validated through several industry experts, academicians, policymakers, statisticians, and other subject experts in order to make this a very, very authentic exercise. This is the formula that was applied really to figure out what is the grey market percentage. So we took the total consumption figure and the total supply figure, found the difference divided by the total consumption again, and then worked out the percentage. So total consumption is the annual consumption expenditure derived from national sample survey for last 365 days. Supply is the gross sales value as per annual sample survey of industries, plus annual production amounts of micro, small, and medium enterprises, plus import value of goods imported. Data, and again, estimated loss of industry is equal to grey market percentage into the industry size, and you will see the figures later, the impact of all of this. Revenue loss to the government is equal to loss on account of direct and indirect taxes. Indirect tax losses, of course, excise duty, customs, plus value-added tax. Then direct tax loss to government is equal to income tax rate into estimated incremental profits on industry sales loss. Now you will see these are the losses really, So you can see this is the grey market percentage. So in alcohol it is 10.2%, auto components is 29.6%, computer hardware is 26.4%, FMCG 23.4%, FMCG 25.9%, mobile phones 20.8%, and tobacco is 15.7%, which is absolutely a very substantial figure, as you can see from here. This is again industry losses, and you can see the figures from here. In all, $18.5 billion loss. These are, of course, figures in 1,000 crores. But overall is, of course, $18.5 billion, which is a humongous amount, and then breakup of each of the sectors is available here. And these are the sectors, essentially, which I mentioned, that these are the sectors we really chose on the basis of data which have substantial impact on the Indian economy. Again, this is the loss to the government. Essentially, there will be a loss in form of the revenues. There is a loss to the government because they will be able to spend lesser on public welfare cost. They will have lesser money to then spend on also the enforcements. And of course, you will have to borrow extra. So the fiscal side also gets pressurized because of this loss in revenue, which is an obvious. Again, the government losses here. This is almost equal to $5 billion, $5 billion, and breakup again is available here. Again, very substantial. So this is the kind of challenge which we face in case of counterfeiting and smuggling, really, and government machinery needs to be activated to deal with this. Of course, the key factors impacting which promote the grey market are known to everybody over here. We've been talking about it for the last 3 days. This is just a small matrix that we have created, and I won't really go into detail on this one. Way forward, as we've been talking about, I think everybody has really talked about it, which is to create a regulatory environment, consumer awareness, as we talked in detail, a lot of effort is we as FICCI are also doing, we as country is also, we're also kind of engaged in a lot of consumer affairs activity. Supply chain management, I would again like to highlight, we as an organization are looking at the whole governance practices. I'll again link back to what I said in the beginning is Mahatma Gandhi's statement of we being the trustees. I would just replace the word poor with the customer, and that's where we want to work across supply chains to ensure that the governance practices are well synced with their, well synced with the whole ethos of, right kind of behavior towards the customer. Technological innovations, etc. We've seen a lot of stuff being displayed here as well, and there is a lot of technology which is happening. We need to just use that in the right way. Industry initiatives, collaborations, of course, with the government and the others, and that's one of the things that we've been trying to do. As I said, we're working a lot with our government. We're also trying to create dialogue with the international organization of our industry members to create more awareness on this whole stuff. Again, role of search and seizure. We need also right kind of infrastructure to be able to deal with the seized goods and to be able to destroy them and keep them somewhere safe, etc. Counterfeiting policy, due diligence, and rationalizing tax regime, essentially because in India we have varying taxes between the states, and we're working towards Common Goods and Services Tax Act, and that's probably one of very good move which can really help in kind of controlling this interest rate kind of losses that happen on account of tax arbitrage. So thank you very much. This was a little presentation from our side. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jyoti. As you know, ICC and BASCAP are committed to working with you and Cascade over the next year. So we have two more speakers to squeeze into the last minute or two that we have for our panel. So I'd like to invite Branka Takcik to come to the podium, please. Branka is the director of the Intellectual Property Office in Serbia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here and to be able to inform you about both the challenges facing Serbia and the results that we achieved in the fighting against piracy and counterfeit. Like other countries in the Western Balkans, Serbia has been facing the problem of piracy and counterfeiting for many years, and it has been dealing with its suppression in an organized way for over a decade. In the field of IP legislation, Serbia has worked intensively on the alignment of its laws with EU legislation and the TRIPS agreement, and today a high degree of harmonization has been achieved. At the same time, we have tried to develop institutions capable of enforcing IP rights in an efficient and reliable way. We now have a range of institutions dealing with the prevention and combating IP piracy and counterfeiting. Some of them have special units for the prevention of IP violations, and some have this obligation as an additional working task. As an example of a well-organized unit, I would like to mention a special police unit for high-technology crime monitoring Internet IP crime. This unit, in 2012, filed 153 criminal charges against unauthorized use of IP rights. In the same year, 94 persons were found guilty for various IP criminal acts in Serbia. I would also like to mention a specialized unit for the enforcement of IP border measures in customs administration. It coordinates the implementation of IP border measures at 14 customs points that currently exist in Serbia. I'm happy to point out that the Serbian Customs Administration were awarded by the World Customs Organization for the results achieved in 2011 for the exchange of information between IP right holders and the Customs Administration. In that year, they seized around 1,500,000 items, and in the following year, 708 84,000 items. Apart from the police and customs, there is a wide network of inspection bodies such as the Trade Inspectorate, Tax Administration, and Health and Sanitary Inspection, among others. What are the greatest challenges in the efficiently fighting against piracy and counterfeiting in Serbia? The main challenges we face in this field are protracted waiting times for court decisions and the lack of uniformity in sentencing. In Serbia, 42 courts rule on civil IP law cases, 26 district courts, and 16 commercial courts. As the subject matter of IP rights represent less than 5% of all court cases, in some courts, judges rarely have the opportunity to work on IP cases. With such a dispersion of competencies, it is difficult to achieve a trial of high quality and efficiency. Therefore, after conducting a thorough analysis, the government recently proposed amendments to the law on courts in order to achieve the centralization of competencies for IP civil cases. The draft law envisages a single court, the Belgrade Commercial Court, ruling for the first time in all civil IP cases. With regard to criminal law procedure, the Criminal Code provides, apart from fines, custodial sentences from up to 3 to up to 5 years, depending on the seriousness of the violation committed. Here, it should be mentioned that there have been cases where the pronouncing of stricter sentences would have been appropriate. This, I believe, the centralization of criminal courts, together with heightening judiciary awareness of the devastating effects of piracy and counterfeiting on the Serbian economy and health of the people, throughout adequate training program will result in more efficient and unified practice. With regard to administrative authorities, not all inspectorates are equally efficient in the fight against piracy and counterfeiting. Therefore, an intergovernmental working group has been formed to set out the amendments to the law in order to propose the centralization of competencies involving fewer government bodies that would have a greater capacity for inspection activities. I would also like to point out a lack of institutional coordination mechanisms between numerous IP authorities. The continual exchange of information is missing. A solid IT platform would make transparency possible. Therefore, our IP strategy for the period 2011 to 2015 includes the establishment of a permanent coordination body for cooperation between the police inspectorates, customs administration, and other competent bodies such as the courts and the public prosecutor's office. The private sector should also be included. The aim is to have everyone updated with the activities of all the others, to mutually exchange experiences, information, the resources, and to build common action plans. To my mind, harsh economic conditions can generate illegal actions, and so repressive measures cannot be the only response of the state in the suppression of the violation of IP rights. This kind of approach is adopted by the tax administration in the supervision of the legality of software of taxpayers. Here is an example of their activities in 2012. The tax administration conducted checks on 555 taxpayers with 34,000 computers. The results of these checks showed that 43% of those checked use legal software and 57% use illegal software. From those that used illegal software, 98% decided to purchase and install legal software. Only 2% of taxpayers did not install legal software in the period prescribed by the inspectors, and these inspectors filed charges against them for the offenses. I believe this to be the right policy, since the education of the public is equally as important as sanctioning. With regard to the education of enforcement bodies, I would like to underline that in the framework of activities of the Center for the Education and Information of the Serbian IP Office, training has been and is ongoing for all enforcement bodies. In 2011 and 2012, experts from Interpol, Europol, and other international organizations helped implementing this training, and we are grateful for that. In the same period, several study visits were organized to the enforcement bodies of Italy, Denmark, and Great Britain, and 11 seminars in Belgrade were held. I would like to emphasize that in Serbia, apart from internet piracy and counterfeiting, we still have the problem of piracy of optical discs. A high degree of this kind of piracy imposes the need for state control over the production and sale of optical discs and their production parts. The law on optical discs of 2011 is expected to achieve this. Supervision of the enforcement of the law on optical discs, that is the sales of optical discs, production parts and production equipment, is performed by the Market Inspectorate. With regard to imported goods, the supervision is conducted on the premises of the person importing the goods on the basis of data supplied monthly to the Market Inspectorate by the responsible customs body. In 2012, the market inspectors carried out the supervision of over 81 companies importing optical discs. They temporarily seized 37,000 imported optical discs for not having SID codes. A request was submitted for the confiscation and destruction of the optical discs. To conclude, I would like to stress the importance for any country of the following: specialization of courts, permanent and institutionalized cooperation of all competent bodies, cooperation with the right holders, sound regional and international cooperation, continual training and upgrading for all competent bodies, and continual actions in raising public awareness. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Branka. So we're right at the end of our session here, and in the absence of Andre, I had asked Antonia if she could join us, sit in and say just a couple of words on what she's doing in the Ukraine, and that will close our session after that.
Good morning to everybody. I'm very glad to be here. But I didn't prepare special presentation because I am like emergency here instead of a Russian colleague. Just yesterday, chairman invited me to say a few words about Ukraine. And I would like to share with you some information about a public awareness campaign which was launched in Ukraine last year. By Ukrainian Alliance Against Counterfeiting and Piracy, who is a member of Global Anti-Counterfeiting Network, together with Patent Office of Ukraine and ICC of Ukraine. We started this campaign. We invited police authorities and custom authorities to take part of this event. During event was presented posters which created by BASCAP. Name of that campaign was I buy real, I don't buy fake. Also we presented a special recommendation for business and IP roadmap which also were created by BASCAP. And it was very interesting because after that first event we understood that we should teach not only young people, we should teach also very adult and experienced consumers, because in Ukraine maybe it's after heritage from Soviet Union, because during Soviet time we didn't have private property for intellectual property right, all invention, we even didn't have trademarks, proper trademarks, because all belongs to the state. And after collapse of Soviet Union, when each post-Soviet countries established own patent office, we started to receive knowledge about IP rights. But it's still even after 20 years, it is still not enough. And why we created this campaign, why we started with all this event, we decided to continue with this education with the school and universities. We already have agreement with Patent Office and a special association for directors of Ukrainian school from 1st of September this year to start special lessons for young people in the school. Also during the campaign we presented a small master class with the name "Which Sins Are Good, Which Sins Are Bad." In very, very simple way, we try to explain how important is IP rights for whole society, and why all of us, all our society, all our people should to respect IP rights. And we plan to continue all this campaign around Ukraine. We will start with big cities, and we already have agreements with local state administration, and in June we will start in Kiev special event on open market, and we will invite young people. It will be like a start-up campaign in Ukraine. And I hope it's bring big success for our Ukrainian society, because counterfeiting problem, it's also big problem in Ukraine. We have very good law in Ukraine, but we have a lot of problems with enforcement. And of course, if we have this problem with protection IP rights, it is not very good for investment climate in Ukraine, and because we would like to continue this campaign, and of course with BASCAP, with private sector, with governmental authorities. Thank you very much for your attention. It was all my message.
Thank you, Antonina. It's always interesting to learn about your work in Ukraine. Unfortunately, we've consumed all of the time that we'd allocated for this session, so I'm going to ask the chairman if we can take any questions that you might have off to the side of the stage so that we can introduce the next panel. So with that, I'd like to thank each of you for your presentations and thank all of you for listening and joining us.